Good afternoon, Seawolves, and welcome to another edition of the Stony Brook Media Group. I'm Adrienne Esposito.
And I'm Kelly Garino. We have a lot to cover today.
Last night, President Biden held a press conference regarding a special counsel investigation into the storage of classified documents in his home. Although it was found that Biden retained and disclosed classified materials after serving as vice president, Special Counsel Robert K. Hur concluded that Biden should not face criminal charges. Hur stated that Biden presented himself as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory, and that it would be difficult to persuade a jury that Biden had committed a felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Hur took it a step further when he claimed that Biden could not remember the years he was vice president, or when his son Beau passed away. Biden challenged these remarks in a televised statement, declaring, "My memory is fine." He became angry when speaking about his son and stated, "I don't need anyone to remind me of when he passed away," before raising his arm to display Beau's rosary.
The Lunar New Year at Stony Brook is in full swing. Let's go to Tim Dorlando and Mackenzie Yadoff for coverage.
Chinese New Year is an important cultural staple here at Stony Brook University, especially with its large Asian American population. Today, we're joining China Blue and Puso for their cultural appreciation event.
Puso and China Blue collaborated to host a Lunar New Year celebration, highlighting New Year's traditions from a variety of Asian cultures.
Tonight, I'm just looking forward to, especially since we usually have games. This one's more of a social event. Like there's games everywhere. People are just walking around. I'm really excited for everyone to meet each other and just see how everyone gets along.
Students also witnessed group performances and participated in crafts, sharing what New Year's means to them.
A chance for new beginnings, good fortunes, and just spending time with family and friends.
From this event, I hope that, well, first of all, people enjoy it, but secondly, that they get a deeper understanding of how different cultures operate and how their New Year's work, and maybe even celebrate it someday with people from that culture or on their own.
I'm Mackenzie Yetto, reporting for Stony Brook Media Group.
Our international segment today goes all over the globe. Let's jump into some top stories with Miriam Gergis.
Thank you, Kelly. Brazilian federal police publicly announced accusations of a broad conspiracy led by former President Jair Bolsonaro, whose goal was to stay in power despite losing the 2022 election. Bolsonaro ministers and military leaders are accused of spreading disinformation about voter fraud and plotting a potential coup. Bolsonaro was also accused of illegally changing a proposed order to arrest only one Supreme Court justice instead of the two that were listed in the order. These allegations were revealed in a 134-page court order authorizing a sweeping federal police operation. Although Bolsonaro claims to be innocent and the victim of a politically motivated operation, he has been ordered not to leave the country and hand over his passport. Current President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva expressed his hope for a fair investigation. Lula served 580 days in prison due to corruption charges against him that had later been annulled. Bolsonaro's alleged actions, including attempts to discredit the election system and recruit support for a coup, have sparked widespread concern due to the country's history of military dictatorship. Israeli airstrikes targeted the southern Gaza city of Rafah on Thursday, resulting in casualties and escalating tensions a day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected a ceasefire proposal by Hamas. Hamas's proposal called for Israel to free Palestinians in exchange for the remaining kidnapped Israelis, follow a long-term ceasefire plan, as well as for Israel to withdraw from Gaza. Netanyahu dismissed the proposal after labeling it, quote, ludicrous, and stated that there was no solution besides total victory. Despite warnings from the aid groups and the UN about potential civilian devastation, Israel persists in advancing on Rafah. Netanyahu stated on Wednesday that an Israeli victory was, quote, within reach, which contradicted with a statement made by U.S. intelligence officials to Congress this past week, saying Israel was not close to eliminating Hamas. Riyad al-Turk, a prominent Syrian opposition leader dubbed as the Nelson Mandela of Syria, died at 93 in a Paris suburb. He endured nearly 2 decades of imprisonment and torture under Syria's dictatorial regimes. He was imprisoned 4 times, spent years in solitary confinement, and was repeatedly tortured. He continuously fought the Syrian government until he reluctantly fled to France to live in exile in 2018. Despite all of this, he remained committed to advocating for democracy and human rights. In an effort to enhance workers' rights, Australia's Senate has approved a bill granting workers the right to disconnect from work calls and messages outside of their designated hours. Critics, including business groups and opposition lawmakers, argue that this legislation could affect productivity and job creation and undermines the existing legal protections against unreasonable working hours. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese emphasized the importance of respecting employees' time, stating that individuals shouldn't be penalized for not being constantly available. Australia joins European nations like France, Germany, Italy, and Belgium in placing similar measures to protect workers' downtime.
Let's head over to Sky and Caton with the political corner.
The Supreme Court has started hearing opening arguments this week on whether former President Donald Trump is still eligible to run for federal office after his alleged involvement in the January 6th Capitol attack. Multiple reports say the justices appear to be skeptical of Colorado's decision to ban him from appearing on the state ballot. The constitutional violation in question is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that prevents insurrectionalists from holding a federal office. Chief Justice John Roberts questioned why the provision would give the states the power to choose who is on the ballot. Justice Alina Kagan asked why a single state should decide who gets to be president of the United States. The Supreme Court typically does take several months to issue its final verdict, but it is believed they will make a decision by Super Tuesday, as that is when Colorado's primary will be held. And former President Donald Trump has gained 26 more delegates from Nevada in the Republican race for the presidential nomination. This comes after running virtually unopposed in the GOP-run caucus held last night. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who opted for the state-mandated GOP primary, lost to none of these candidates this past week. Olivia Perez Cubas, a spokesperson for Haley, responded with a statement saying, "We didn't bother to play a game rigged for Trump." And despite the losses, Haley's presidential campaign still continues. Trump's win of Nevada's Republican delegates puts him even closer to having a rematch with current President Joe Biden. And the next Republican primary will be in South Carolina 2 weeks from now. And now, we have our newest political correspondent, Caden Muse, reporting on the recent debate for New York's 3rd congressional district seat.
Thanks, Guy. The long-anticipated debate between Democrat Tom Suozzi and Republican Mazi Pilip took place in the Bethpage Optimum Theater last night, in what became a tense discussion over key issues regarding the southern border and abortion access. Hosted by local broadcaster News 12, the hour-long debate comes before Tuesday's special election to fill New York's 3rd congressional district seat, originally filled by infamous Republican George Santos, who became the 6th congressman to be expelled from the House last December. The ongoing migrant crisis in New York City and Nassau County was prime cannon fodder for the two candidates, who ripped into each other in the outset of the failed bipartisan Senate bill, which would have put strong restrictions on asylum seekers and would have created an effective stopgap at the southern border. A former representative of the House, Suozzi, was criticized by comparatively inexperienced Pilip on kicking ICE from Nassau County and being a member of the progressive squad of the chamber. Suozzi pushed back on many of her claims, calling out Pilip for siding with many Republicans and not supporting a recent bipartisan bill. There were a few moments of agreement. However, both candidates were strong supporters of Israel in their recent conflict with Hamas. And in a surprising partisan switch, Republican Pilip affirmed that women should have the right to choose whether or not to have an abortion, even as she is personally pro-life. The debate came as a recent Siena College poll showed the two candidates in a statistically tied race. While Suozzi is up by 4 points, it's within the poll's margin of error. The outcome of this race is crucial to House Republicans, who hold a crucially narrow majority in the chamber. If Suozzi flips the seat, Republicans will only have 218 seats to work throughout the upcoming November elections.
And that wraps up this week's edition of The Political Corner. Tune in next week for continued coverage of everything political happening in the United States. Once again, I'm Sky Crabtree.
And I'm Caden Muse.
And now let's throw it back to our anchors.
We have a new segment on health, technology, and science. Let's hear more from Maya Duclay.
Thanks, Kelly. In our health and technology segment today, Adderall used to treat patients with ADHD is expected to be in short supply until at least April. The nationwide shortage continues into its second year as the makers of ADHD drugs and the Drug Enforcement Administration are in a standstill. Drug makers are pointing fingers at the DEA, saying they don't have enough ingredients to continue production and need permission to make more, while the DEA insists that producers have not yet met their quotas and can continue production as normal. Patients with Adderall prescriptions are advised to be proactive about their refills. Doctors are suggesting that patients talk to their providers about switching to alternative options, even though they may be less ideal or even pricier. Google introduced its new AI model, Gemini, just yesterday, replacing Google Bard and Google Assistant. Gemini is a talking digital assistant and a chatbot in one. The app is capable of writing poetry, generating images, drafting emails, and even writing computer code. It's currently available to English speakers in 150 countries on Android devices and is said to be available to Apple users in the coming weeks. The app will eventually have pricing tiers, but is currently free. Google is also offering a free 2-month trial period, encouraging users to try Gemini Advanced. After the 2 months are up, the advanced version will be $20 per month. Something to make note of, Gemini can sometimes get facts wrong or hallucinate. The American Red Cross is experiencing the lowest number of blood donors in the last 20 years. To deal with the emergency shortage, Blood Centers of America, in collaboration with Abbott Laboratories, has launched a pilot program for donors. The program uses fully immersive mixed reality headsets while blood is being drawn to ease anxiety and encourage people to donate again. Donors stay fully aware of their real-world surroundings during the experience. Meanwhile, in the virtual world, most of them are planting seeds in a colorful garden while listening to music. 142 of the donors reportedly faced pre-donation anxiety. Of those people, 68% say that the mixed reality helped ease their stress, allowing for a more pleasant experience. 89% of donors say they plan to come back. And we have a sad story to report at Stony Brook this week. We lost a good friend. Brooke Ellison, associate professor at Stony Brook University's School of Health Professions, passed away on Sunday at 45 years old. Ellison was a beacon of inspiration both on and off campus. She became paralyzed from the neck down at age 11 as she was crossing a busy road coming home from her first day of 7th grade. Later on, she went to Harvard, where she graduated with summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in cognitive neuroscience. Ellison then earned her master's in public policy from Harvard, and later her PhD in sociology from Stony Brook in 2012. She joined the university faculty later that year. Her involvement on campus went beyond the classroom. She led the inclusion team in the Vertically Integrated Projects program, where she worked with students on accessibility issues. Ellison was also an esteemed author who wrote 2 books, one of which was co-authored by her mother, Jean Ellison. Miracles Happen, One Mother, One Daughter, One Journey, was later adapted into a movie directed by Christopher Reeve, titled Brooke Ellison's Story.
Let's throw it over to the Media Minute with Tommy and Miles.
Thanks, Adrian. Welcome to our Media Minute, where you get all your updates on pop culture as well as our latest addition to the show, our sports segment. I'm Miles Reese.
And I'm Thomas Pardo. We have a lot to cover today. Earlier this week was one of the biggest nights in music, the Grammys. The awards show was opened up by Dua Lipa with the live performance mashup of her songs Houdini, Dance the Night Away, and Training Season.
There were also many new artists who won their very first Grammy, including Tyla for Best African Music Performance, Miley Cyrus for her hit single Flowers, and Victoria Monet for Best New Artist.
Speaking of music, this Sunday, Usher will be taking the stage for this year's Super Bowl halftime show. He's expected to perform a mix of his R&B classics as well as some newly released music.
In this year's Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers are facing off against each other this Sunday at the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Both teams have star-studded talent on both sides of the ball.
It has been a fierce battle for both teams this season, as this Sunday we'll see which team will reign supreme when they square off in the big game.
Make sure to tune in to the Super Bowl 58 this Sunday, February 11th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thomas, this is going to be an amazing game. I really can't wait to see it. I can't miss it.
I agree, Miles. This is going to be a crazy one.
And that's all for this week's edition of the Media Minute. I'm Miles Reese.
And I'm Thomas Pardo.
Thanks for watching and see you next week.
That's it for this week's edition of the Stony Brook Media Group. This has been Adrian Esposito.
And Kelly Garino from the studio. Have a great week, Sea Wolves.